the Lakers, who find themselves, they go from a championship winning coach to a Western Conference Finals winning coach to searching again. And, at a certain point, it becomes, what does success even look like in that job? And I think that's the question a lot of people are trying to answer in LA.
Yeah, I think from everything I have been told, success for the next head coach in the Lakers will be both optimizing whatever years are left of LeBron James' career and setting forth principles and establishing a playing style, a culture, what have you, that can exist beyond LeBron's days with Anthony Davis as the centerpiece of things. One thing, Anthony Davis, I remember Herculean effort on both sides of the floor in the in-season tournament championship. He has had plenty of moments of being a dominant two-way force where he's looked like, holy hell, is this guy one of the top 10 players in the league again? He has not, to me, been that consistently enough where the Lakers should be so confident that he's the next guy that can just take this thing forward. It will be very curious to see if they end up actually making a move for some third banana that they've kind of been missing all along since the AD and LeBron partnership came together when he was traded from New Orleans to Los Angeles in 2019, which I was talking about this with someone on the phone earlier this week. Like, the free agency market is not robust in terms of players who are going to be actually available for the taking and teams that actually have cap space. 2019 feels so long ago.
It really does.
Anthony Davis was traded to LA, but when you had, and Paul George was traded to the Clippers, but when you had Kawhi choose the Clippers and you had KD and Kyrie choose Brooklyn, and even like Gordon Hayward, if you want to talk about the lineage of this Boston team, like Gordon Hayward taking meetings and figuring out his stuff, that stuff feels like such a bygone era because that just isn't how it's happening. Even with, I don't think I've written this yet, so it is kind of new content for our Yahoo Sports audience. Even if Paul George were to leave the Clippers this year, there is definitely a prevailing school of thought that he might not opt out of his player option for next season and just sign on the open market. That it would actually behoove him and the Clippers to opt in and then get traded and then sign an extension after that. So if that were to happen, which again, I'm not saying I'm not saying he's going to leave the Clippers, but just something people are talking about.
At least an option on the board.
Yeah. And look, if he looks to his right in the locker room, James Harden just did that a couple months ago. So that would be another player not moving through free agency. The Lakers, to bring us back there, they had talks with Atlanta about DeJounte Murray. We have reported that. They had talks about other things. But they decided we were going to wait till this summer in order to have access to 3 first-round picks, and we'll figure it out then. Donovan Mitchell might come up. There's the Zach LaVine price that's in theory just only going down. Could we trade for Garland? Could we trade for Trey? Like, it's been pretty quiet about that, as they've just been, all the talk about the Lakers has been about this head coaching thing. And I've heard plenty of people that they are considering at number 17. There's talk of the Lakers wanting to move up a little bit. If they stay at 17, heard plenty about them looking for bigs. Devin Carter, the Providence guard. Mm-hmm. Shout out Friars. He seems to be someone that the Lakers seem to like. I've been told that would be his absolute floor, but I don't think he'll be anywhere close. I don't think he's getting out of the lottery, let alone even out of the top 10. We'll see. His dad works for Memphis. A lot of thought that maybe he could go there. Maybe he could go elsewhere. Who's to say? But all this is to say that there is so much more to this Lakers puzzle than just if JJ Redick is going to be the guy for this job. So the fact that JJ Redick does seem to be the guy for this job, I think, is also exemplary of the fact that the Lakers are just kind of like a influx team. They are not exactly a championship contender. Although they got to the Western Conference Finals a year ago, they've been in the play-in tournament every year. They are a play-in tournament perennial team. That, in this new league era of parity, doesn't mean what I think the league thought it would have meant when it first started for good reason. Like, it is great for the NBA. It is great for the overall playoff theater that some team, such as Miami last year to the finals, the Lakers all the way to the Western Conference Finals, can do that. But I don't think anyone around the NBA truly believes that this Lakers roster as constructed last year, and like with D'Angelo Russell having a player option decision to make, that if you polled 100 people in the NBA, I would guess 93% of them said D'Angelo Russell should pick that up because I don't see him getting more money on the open market. People talk about Orlando. I haven't talked to anyone in Orlando. I will admit publicly about D'Angelo Russell being on the radar, but I can guarantee you D'Angelo Russell is not on the Orlando Magic radar for more money than what he's potentially on the books for in LA. So I know this is going like very off task, but
it's all right.
These are bigger conversations that the Lakers have to have. And it'll be interesting. Like, this whole thing of, will it be JJ? Will it be Dan Hurley? Will it be Borrego? Like, once they get done with this decision, to me is when the interesting stuff in LA actually will occur.
I get that, because if for no other reason, that it seems like you are basically just renting if you're the coach of the Lakers at this point. Like, what of what certainty can you have beyond like a year at this point in that job? And yes, the what happens after LeBron is the most fascinating part of it. LeBron obviously also holds the cards there, and he can decide what he wants to do with his player option, and with, if he wants to extend and
he's
go.
He's re-signing with the Lakers.
Well, I'm just saying, I don't think that he's not. I when we did our round table about like, is fact or fiction, LeBron James is on the, I think everybody picked fact. I don't think anybody sees him not being there, but by
process of elimination, he's not taking anything less than the max. And the only teams that can offer him that are Philly, where I've been told, and I also just from looking at it, don't expect him to hitch his wagon to a perennially injured Joel Embiid.
Right.
Is he going to Utah?
I don't think so.
Is he going to Detroit?
Are they're going to be able to pay him and Monty? Can they do both?
No cap room for coaches. So.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe he decides to go to San Antonio. Anyway, you're right. Yeah, there's no reason to believe that he's not going to do it. I'm just saying, as you talk about the different decision points and inflection points and whatever, that's one of them. And then what does that contract look like, and how long is it, and what kind of horizon are you looking at there? I think the interesting thing to me is just like, what do the Lakers, what do they want to be? You're right to say like I don't think you can just look at it and say it's Anthony Davis's team, because Anthony Davis he made All NBA second team this year. He didn't make All NBA the last several years before that, in part because of injury and lack of availability and things like that. Anthony Davis is not a perennial first team All NBA player anymore. He's not a perennial top 5 player. He's closer to 10 to 15 than he is to 5 to 1. And that's still a really good player. But yes, you don't build the entire plane around him in the same way that you wouldn't just say, we're signing Paul George to be our number 1 option and expecting to be awesome, right? Like those guys are great players, but they need to be buttressed by other great players. So what is the vision? What, do you want and you mentioned James Borrego as the sort of like offensive optimization agent. All right. If not him, if you don't wind up with JJ Redick because he doesn't want to be viewed as the second choice, or because he doesn't knock his interview out of the park or whatever. Right. The things that have been forwarded. I know Vinny had mentioned that there was some concern around the league about, JJ maybe not wanting to sign up for the circus or, be viewed as the second choice after all the Dan Hurley stuff. And if it's not James Borrego because he winds up being the guy in Cleveland, where do you find that answer? John Gennaro, super producer, put the notes in the doc. Like, Dan had some good ideas. Dan just scratched out some thoughts very quickly on a plane on the way to our to Dallas. So, but my question was like, if you are looking for an offensive guy, someone who has been part of good offenses, someone who has a lot of experience in crafting different kinds of offenses, who's had a lot of input, where maybe that's. You give Sam Cassell a call when he gets done with the Celtics run. Maybe that's David Adelman in Denver. You've seen up close and personal how that Denver offense can work, and the difficult positions that it can put you in defensively. That's. I wonder what the next answer is if it's not Borrego and if it's not Redick, but we might not even get to that point. whatever decision winds up being made, obviously all eyes are going to be on it, because no matter how good or bad or relevant or whatever they are.
I hate the all eyes expression. Not all eyes will be on it. My eyes will be on it. I'm going to be reading a book before my eyes are glued to this situation.
Jake, you're talking about like getting patched into three-way calls with coaches about what's going to happen, 18 hours from now and 2 weeks from now, and where Devin Carter's floor is in 2 weeks. Like, your eyes are on this stuff. I'm glad you're reading. That's wonderful.
All eyes are not on the Lakers coaching job. I mean, you think people in Kamchatka care about the Lakers job? Like, what a terrible expression. I hate it. I hate it so much.
A whole lot of people who give a shit about NBA basketball stuff are going to be paying attention to which guy's coaching the Los Angeles Lakers next year. Fair adjustment?
Much better. Much
All right.
better.
And so whichever direction they wind up going, it'll draw a lot of interest within our stupid world, whether Kamchatka isn't part of that or not.
Yeah. Last thing I'll say, because it was suggested I talk about it in some respect. The Dan Hurley thing, I just want to go on record and state, the Lakers would not have offered him $70 million. They would not have flown him to Los Angeles if that was not a real thing.
Right.
That's all I'll say. The league is rife with tinfoil hats, and some of them lightning strikes, and it turns out to be correct. But I do not think that situation was just a clear-cut conspiracy where it was all a sham to get Dan Hurley more money from UConn, because the Lakers met with him and they offered him money, a lot of money that has not been available to them, that they did not make available to Ty Lue a couple years ago, which if they had offered that contract to him, maybe none of us would be having this conversation and the Lakers would be in a much different circumstance. The JJ Redick being like the Lakers top priority, and he hasn't actually met with them in person, yada yada. Like, yes, I do believe Redick has been the clear-cut favorite for this job, with Borrego right behind the mix all along. Borrego apparently has a connection with Anthony Davis still after all these years, even after they only overlapped for like a month or so after Davis was drafted in 2012, I believe, the year after Kyrie at 2011. Mm-hmm. That's how my brain works to remember these things. The year before Anthony Bennett going number one. And that connection has apparently served Borrego well enough to be involved in this search to such a degree. But the fact that Redick could not have left his post calling these finals certainly opened the door for the Lakers to look into other opportunities. And when Gino Auriemma's contract extension happened with UConn, and then that kind of signaled, the NBA and the college coaching industries are very overlapped because assistants go back and forth, mm-hmm. and the agents who handle college coaches, a lot of them also handle, like Brett Just is Dan Hurley's agent. He is James Borrego's agent as well. Like, all this information and all this business overlaps for sure. So when the women's coach of UConn gets a new deal done, and then like those talks are going to be happening on the men's side, word gets back to the Lakers that he's not wrapped up and your search isn't wrapped up. Like, to me, 2 and 2 can't equal 4, more so than 17 sometimes. So that's all I have to say there. And I think that's all we have to say on this episode of No Cap Room.